probably better now.
That's great. This is, see, I copied that, BATT. This is what President Truman, unconditional surrender of the Germans. You read it?
Yeah, so this is it dates from the time.
Yeah, I copied that in my
You did that? Okay.
Pretty, yeah.
No, and also with attire like a girl, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, in France we did the same.
Now that is that's my daughter over there. That's her, and that's my older daughter. She's in Texas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here today. A very, very special day for my father-in-law, Joseph Battista. Some of you all have had a chance to meet him. Many of you all have not. Most of you all have no idea who he is or where he served, but you are here in honor of him, of Beth and I and our family, and the United States Navy and the United States of America. So before we go on, I want Papa Joe. I've always called him Papa Joe. You know, when you get married, what do you call the in-laws and all that? It has been Papa Joe for 38 years, maybe 37. I don't think I called him that right when we got married, but it was shortly after. Papa Joe, I'm going to ask you all to stand up. Not you all, you, sir. Stand up and turn around and look at these people who have come to honor you. It is so important that you all are here, and I really want to say thanks to the United States Navy. Captain Dominic Lavello, stand please. He is the captain. He is the senior naval officer on Fort Gordon. I would ask all Navy sailors who are here today, part of his command, to stand up so we can say thank you to you all. We're honored to have everybody here. There's way too many VIPs, but our special guest today, who is here to present one of France's highest honors, the French Legion of Honor, is the Consul General from France, now serving in Atlanta, Georgia. You'll hear more about him later on, but please welcome, sir, Vincent Hammeril. We have many other folks here. I'm not going to spend any time on this wonderful, cool, well air-conditioned facility right now. We're going to get right to it. But I do want to say before we proceed here is protocol is very important, and the guys and gals who have served know it. And you saw us messing with the colors here. And I want to explain to you why, because it's important for you to know. The U.S. colors have to be and will always be on stage right in a formal military ceremony. That is the position of honor. If any other nations are participating, like the French, that will be the next set of colors. If we were having a joint or a combined or a joint operation with other military services, you would see the other service colors on stage in their order. There's a specific order that they go, and they go by the oldest of the services. So if we were having all the services here, the Army's the oldest service in America, then the Marines, then the Navy, then the Air Force, and if the Coast Guard was participating in a defense operation, it would be the Coast Guard colors there. We're only talking about the Navy today, even though Beth and I, and there's a lot of Army people here. Let's just soak it up, Army guys. Our focus is the United States Navy, and we are so proud of them. So we have the Navy colors. On height, no flag can be higher than the United States of America flag. If there are other nations like the French flag and the American flag have to be at the same height. No service flag can be higher. That's why we had to get it right. It's not a normal thing when we have, the French embassy in Atlanta coming and we have different colors and the Navy brought theirs. That's okay. We got it right, and now we are ready to proceed. Fair enough? Let me briefly, we didn't have enough programs for everyone. I would ask you to share so that you can see what's going on. Worry not, we got it all under control. We will make sure everything happens on time. I'm going to speak for a little bit. You'll hear Beth talk a little bit. You'll hear the Consul General speak. And then we will present the award. And it will start with an invocation, and we'll conclude with the benediction. Obviously, we have room here for reception afterwards, and we would invite you all to join us for that. After the award is presented, this will be a logistical challenge, but one we are looking forward to. The Consul General has brought champagne and wine, and we are going to have a ceremonial toast before we disband. And so the staff here is going to be hard at work, and we will distribute 100 glasses of champagne, and the Consul General is going to lead us in a toast to honor Papa Joe. So without further ado, I'm going to ask the chaplain to come up and give us an invocation.
Well, this is indeed a great day. Would you please bow with me for a word of thanks? Heavenly Father, today we pause for a very special moment to celebrate the decision to honor where honor is due. We are grateful for the French government and their representative, Mr. Vincent Hammeril, who continue to remember the invasion in Normandy and act in a grateful manner towards service members like Joseph Battista, who played a pivotal role in the successful Normandy invasion to liberate France. We are thankful for Jeff and Beth Foley, who are grateful for their dad and chose to honor him by initiating this grateful action that led to this moment of the presentation of the French Legion of Honor. Heavenly Father, today we honor and give thanks for a decision that was made in 1943 by Joseph Battista to serve his country and consequently play a pivotal role in the D-Day operation during World War II, establishing 5 beachheads in Normandy, France. Lord, we ask your special blessing today on him, our gracious hosts, the Foleys, our representatives from the French government, and all those who are here today to remember and honor the courage and commitment demonstrated in Normandy 77 years ago. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Mateer. When we play the American national anthem, protocol requires us to stand tall and place our right hand over our hearts. When we play the national anthem of another country, like we will shortly, you are simply to stand tall and be proud of the foreign country for which we're doing. I would like to invite you all now to stand for the playing of the American national anthem and the national anthem of France. Please be seated. I'd like to ask Sergeant Major Tom Clark as a special presentation for you, Papa Joe, and all of us.
Doesn't my old boss look presidential up here? Sir, you served your country, and that means so much to so many of us in this room. You served it for many reasons, but this poem kind of talks about the pride in our country, in your service, in your heroism, and I love you. I've known you, sir, for a long time. Me and your son-in-law served together in both peace and war. This family means they're not my blood, but they are my brother and sister. So I offer you this poem. I was walking through a county courthouse square. On a park bench, an old man sat there. I said, "Your courthouse is kind of run down." He said, "No, it'll do for our little town." I said, "Your flagpole, it's leaned a little bit. It's got a ragged old flag on top of it." He said, "Have a seat," so I sat down. "Is this the first time you've been to our little town?" I said, "I think it is." He said, "I don't like to brag, but we're mighty proud of that ragged old flag. You see, it got a hole there the day that Washington took it across the Delaware. And it got powder burned the night that Francis Scott Key sat watching and writing, 'Oh, say, can you see?' It got a little rip in New Orleans with Pakenham and Jackson tugging at its seams. And it almost fell outside the Alamo, but beside the Texas flag, she waved on. She got cut by a sword in Chancellorsville. She got cut again in Shiloh Hill. There was Robert E. Lee, Beauregard, and Bragg. South wind blew hard on that ragged old flag. In Flanders Field in World War I, she took a mighty hit from a Bertha gun. She turned blood red in World War II, hung limp and low by the time it was through. She's been to Korea, Vietnam, Operation Iraqi Freedom. She went where she was sent by her Uncle Sam. Native Americans, blacks, browns, yellows, whites, we all shed red blood for this stars and stripes. In her own good land, she's been abused, sometimes dishonored and refused. And the very government for which she stands scandalized throughout the land. Yes, she's threadbare, she's wearing kind of thin, but she's in good shape for the shape she's in. So we raise her up every morning, and we let her down slow each night. We don't let her touch the ground, and we fold her upright. On second thought, we do like to brag. We do like to brag, because we're mighty proud of this ragged old flag.
Well, welcome again, everyone. We are honored and delighted that you are here to honor Papa Joe, RM2C, Joseph Battista, and his achievements as a young sailor. Most of you know Bethy's dad, or most of you know Bethy and I, and we are really so honored to have you here. I want to share a little bit with you, and I want to invite you all back to December of 1941. Most of us weren't around at that time, and we don't necessarily feel what all of those felt during that time. And then 9/11 happened. And then we got more than a glimpse of what it felt like for our nation to have been attacked by a foreign country. We remember how vulnerable we felt and how angry we felt. And then we remember the day after 9/11 and the days after 9/11. And we can sort of relate to what this young man was feeling in the days after Pearl Harbor and how this country mobilized. We've read all about it. We've seen all the movies. 17 years old when Pearl Harbor hit for Joe. Graduated from high school, went to Ohio State University thinking he might be going to college. But at 18 years old, in February of 1943, he said, I got to join up. Where were you at age 18? What were you all doing? What was on your mind? School, work, chasing women, chasing men? What was going on? What were the priorities in your life back then? I was a cadet at West Point, trying just to survive. I had no time really to think about anything else other than making it through the academy my first year. What were you doing? Joe enlisted in the United States Navy, having never been on a boat. He was compelled to answer his call to duty. And he did. Not many of us joined. A lot of us here have served in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. Not many of us served, went to boot camp knowing full well that we're going to go to war right after boot camp. He knew it. Wasn't sure what the Navy was all about, not sure what war was all about, but he answered the call. He felt this compelling need in his heart and soul to give something more of himself. Isn't that a cool thing? Isn't that a cool thing? Joe had two brothers. He was the middle of three boys. He was the first to join. He joined the Navy. His brothers, his older and younger brother, later on were drafted and served in the Army. All served. They served in combat in the European theater with the Army while Dad was floating at sea in the English Channel and also the Mediterranean. My father was a little older than Joe when he was drafted. He was 27. And after Beth and I started romancing at Fort Bragg a few years ago, it took us a while to fully embrace what happened between my dad and Bethy's dad. Because my dad was in 3rd Armored Division. He was in England. He landed on Normandy 16 days after D-Day. He was being escorted across the English Channel by the United States Navy, and Papa Joe was in that destroyer. Pretty cool.
We were destined.
We were destined, Bethy says. Papa Joe enlisted in the Navy. He became a radio man on a USS DD-381 destroyer called the USS Somers. There's some great pictures of that. That would be the only ship he served. And he worked in the radio room, was his primary duty, and during general quarters he helped man the 20-millimeter gun on that destroyer. Destroyers, and if I get this wrong, sailors, Captain, you're just obligated to say nothing and let me go on. But everything I've read, destroyers were escorts. They were fast, agile ships. They were designed to hunt submarines, protect convoys from submarine and other surface warships. They were to put themselves between torpedoes, but from the enemy and other Navy ships, cargo ships, troop ships. It was like the U.S. Cavalry, first to engage, protect the fleet. That's what Papa Joe was. And I really didn't appreciate life on a destroyer, really, until about 3 months ago when I watched a movie on Apple TV, and it was called Greyhound. I've seen a lot of movies about submarines and ships and D-Day like we all have. But if you are interested to really understand what life was like on a destroyer escorting a convoy, I would encourage you, if you're not on Apple TV, get the 7-day free pass, whatever it works, and watch Greyhound. Tom Hanks is the skipper. He is escorting convoys of ships, a convoy of ships across the Atlantic. and you will see the dangers and the risks and the anxiety. We were anxious watching it. It is a very, very lifelike experience on the USS Destroyer. That gave me an appreciation, Papa Joe, for what life was like for you. And then talking to him, every time we go through some stuff, I hear more stories. The latest story I heard about 3 days ago was he was on the top bunk of a 4-person bunk, and he uses his hand, and he's a little guy, but he had to get on the top bunk, and he had to sleep on his stomach with his arms on each side. Why? Because when the destroyer was rolling in seas, he didn't want to fall off. If he was sleeping on his side or his back, he'd be long gone. Papa Joe's got a lot of stories. He served on the USS Somers in Normandy after multiple convoys across the New York City harbor to Plymouth, England. I think he spent 27 days in the English Channel escorting, protecting the fleet from anti-submarines, aircraft, whatever else might be at threat. He talks about in his story the thousands of ships, the aircraft covering, you couldn't even see the sky. There were so many planes flying. That was his time in Normandy. Beth and I have both been to Normandy. We have spent some time there, sir. My dad landed there. It was a very special time. We spent 3 days, and it wasn't anywhere near enough to know how the French people in northern France feel about us. And we're going to hear more about that because the Consul General was born and raised in Normandy. And he lived in the aftermath of the war, and he's going to share a little bit more about that. And that's why it's so special to have him here. After 27 days in the English Channel, the USS Somers was redirected to the Mediterranean. And in that operation, the invasion of southern France, in the Provence region of France, Dad's destroyer led the convoy. And that's where every aspect of what happens on a destroyer was exercised in that operation. They sunk two German cruisers leading that convoy. They were involved in bombarded French coastal positions for days, helping enable 550,000 U.S. and French soldiers to assault the beaches. All the time he was screening for submarines. Life was tough, not only in the English Channel, but also the Mediterranean Sea. On May 9th, Dad was in the radio room. In the USS Somers, they were right in the middle of the Atlantic, coming back from their latest convoy. When Dad was in the radio room taking messages, we have the Morse code developer here. We have the message that he took when Truman announced the war in Europe was over. He was the first to hear that on his ship. And that's the cool thing about signal guys and radio guys. We get to know stuff earlier than most others. He was the first to know. He gave that message. It's got his name on it. I would encourage you all to come up here and look at it. It's got BATT. That was his code for who took the message. And he gave it to his supervisor, took it up to the skipper. And that's how the USS Somers learned that the war in Europe was over. In March of 1946, Dad was discharged from the Navy. And he took planes, trains, and automobiles from the New York City harbor, train to Toledo, a bus from Toledo to Cleveland, hitchhiked back to Painesville, Ohio, where he was born and raised, and walked the last 2 miles with his sea bag and walked through the front door of his house. Wasn't that a cool thing? Family had no idea where he was or when he was coming home. That was kind of like a movie, Hollywood sort of a thing. After being discharged from the Army, shortly thereafter, he joined the Air Force, and that is a story and a celebration for another time. But he spent about 2 years in the Air Force, and then he left, went back to school, worked for Diamond Shamrock, and he became a mechanical engineer and served in that capacity for the rest of his career. He lives here in Augusta, Georgia, and in the retirement community right outside Fury's Ferry Gate, and we are so delighted to have him. Daughter had two girls. Georgia was the first daughter. Beth was the second. Beth joined the Army. Georgia, the first daughter, did not join the service. And then Beth's daughter married another Army guy, i.e. me. And so every fall, we really started coming to a family feud again with the Army-Navy business. And it's not quite like, who are the feud guys in Tennessee? Hatfield. It's not quite like the Hatfields and McCoys. It's much more friendly, and it only happens really one day a year. And I'm pretty sure Dad still owes me a six-pack from last year's resounding defeat of the United States Navy. There are many significant days of Papa Joe's life. You'll hear about them in a few minutes from Beth and Papa Joe. One of those, however, is very selfish in my opinion, because I think the very special day is when Papa Joe and his wife Georgia gave birth to Bethy. So we met at Fort Bragg, have been married for 38 years, and I would suggest that there is no one today in this room, or perhaps in the United States of America, that is full of more pride in their father than Beth Foley is. Come on up here, babe.
Wow, this is a wonderful group. Thank you so much for being here. Before we do anything else, everybody has to cross their fingers and keep them crossed. I mean it, keep it crossed until I'm done, because I'm going to do something. Toute ma famille vous remercie sincèrement de l'honneur te vont que vous. Jeez, I had it down. Let me think about this. Témoigner par amour d'aujourd'hui. I hope I said that we are honored that you could be here for Daddy and bestow such a wonderful medal on him. Thank you so much for being here. And I know Jeffrey said there's so many of you, we could never thank you all for being here and single you out, but there's three gentlemen in the middle right there, my sergeants major, who always have to be singled out. Ron, stand up. Mikey, Thomas Clark, you've seen. Awesome, awesome men. Truly, my heart always sings when I see them. They always had Jeffrey's back and my back, and it was, you're just awesome, awesome people. I also have to say something about an unsung hero that maybe you all don't think about, but let me tell you, 27 times in my career, I wigged out when it came time to move. We moved 27 times. And if there was ever somebody that made me feel good about getting ready to move, it was Niles Ellefson. Wonderful person. Niles has Ellefson Transportation Group. You're an awesome man. You take care of so many of our troops. A wonderful, I have a lot of souvenirs and stuff. Some of these I had in my possession anytime we moved. And there's some things, people can say it's just stuff, but really at the end of the day, it isn't. It's important things that we have that mean so much to us. And Niles always made sure that it went well. And also important, when you go to a new job, you always want to look your best for your new boss. And Juanita, Niles' wife, is my hairdresser. Thank you. Thank you, Juanita. We love you. I want to talk to you a little bit about Daddy. and let you get to know Daddy the way, maybe a little bit the way I know him. Daddy's family is from Italy. And up front, I have two boards, one talking about family life and one military. And below those boards, I have two antique oval pictures. One is of my grandpa, Daddy's dad, Nunzio Battista, and the other is Grandma's brother, Felix Cardina. They were both in World War I. And the picture up here is of both of them in their uniform. And I think it's wonderful that Grandpa, I think, came over to the United States when he was 9 years old and chose to go to World War I and served our country. I have wonderful memories of my grandpa. He was a really, really kind person, pretty strong, I would say. Anyways, when Grandpa went to work at some point, when Daddy was maybe around 12 years old, Grandpa had a work site injury. And he had an injury that was enough that kept him from work. And so from an early age, maybe like around 12, my dad and his brothers went and helped support the family. And one of the things Daddy did to bring money in was to sell newspapers on the corner of Main Street and St. Clair Street in Painesville, Ohio. And if you get a chance at the end, come on up. I have newspaper clippings of when Daddy had broken his arm when he was roller skating, and he couldn't go to his corner, so Uncle Pat had to go to the corner to take care of it. But then there's another little blurb in the newspaper. I guess this is how, this is how they communicated. Well, Joe's back on his corner again, and all is well with society. So that was pretty neat. And there's also clippings up there on Daddy when he apparently really enjoyed basketball, and he was really athletic, I remember, when I was a little girl. But there's a picture up at the top you'll see on the far right under family life. That's a picture of Daddy as a baby. And Daddy was the second boy of 3 boys and a girl. Uncle Pasquale was the oldest. We called him Uncle Pat. Daddy was second. Uncle Anthony was next. We called him Yates. And then Aunt Mary. We call her May. Everybody, how as a little kid I kept it all straight. I don't know, but we did. You'll see a picture up here, like I said, of Grandpa Battista and my uncle, Felix Cardina. We called him, he was called Zip. After World War I, or when Zip came home, Zip was, from what Daddy says, his favorite uncle. Zip tragically passed. He was in an accident. A car, got hit by a train. And unfortunately, we have a lot of things like that. There's a lot of trauma and drama that troops go through downrange, and they bring it home with them, and sometimes they continue doing risky business. Well, we lost Uncle Zip, and I think that was a real sadness for my dad. And but I'm glad we have Uncle Zip's picture. Unfortunately, we don't have their uniforms. But up here, I also have Daddy's uniforms and some other things that we can show you. I'll stay up here so that I can show you at the end. Daddy and Mom got married. Daddy married Georgia, and Mother was Irish, English descent. I look like Mother. If my sister was here, I have one sister, she's older, and it's just my sister and I. I always introduce her as my older sister, even though there's no other sisters around. Maybe that's why she's not here, I don't know. But my sister is Georgia for Mother and Joe for Daddy. I always called her Dee Dee. She's living in Galveston right now. In the lower left-hand corner, I think, on the family life board, there's a picture of 2 little tots, 2 little tykes, and they're in a room, and there's a mural on the wall. I put that there because I wanted you to see, my mother was marvelously talented. She could do anything. She could paint. She did that painting on the mural. She could sew anything. She was an incredible cook. I wish I learned more about just understanding how food would react in a pan from my mom. But She was quite something. Some other memories I have of Dad, he took the Navy, stayed in his blood a little bit, I guess. We grew up in Painesville, Ohio. That's a northeastern section of Ohio, right along Lake Erie. And we had a little cabin cruiser, and we would go on family vacations in the cabin cruiser. And Daddy had a Navy cap, and he wore it. He was the captain of the ship, and he was a great swimmer. And I remember, and I have no idea why this came to my mind at 4 a.m., he had a black and white Speedo bathing suit. I don't know, I don't really know where that came from. Now, Daddy doesn't remember that. Yeah, it's probably best. It was. Daddy worked, and when I went off to college, and at this time I was already in the Army, Daddy was transferred. He was a mechanical engineer, and he was transferred from Ohio down to Texas near the Space Center outside of Houston, and they lived there for 41 years. So sometimes he thinks he's a Buckeye, sometimes he thinks he's a Texan, but one thing that he is, if anything, he is consistent. And the man only bought Fords. That's all we ever had. However, when I look back on it now, we had one of the first Mustangs, and that was a really cool car. We had a Gran Torino. Mother drove around in a Comet convertible in northeastern Ohio, and if it wasn't snowing, I am not lying to you, we would go riding around in the car, Dee Dee and myself in the middle and Mom. Mother would have her Jackie O glasses on and great big hats. We'd be bundled up. We'd have the heater on. We'd go riding around with the top down, northeastern Ohio. And Daddy would come home and he'd just kind of shake his head when he knew that we had been out and about. But those were good times. He stayed working after when he got done working full time. He went as a consultant, and then Mother at that point decided. Well, she was always busy. She became an antique dealer, and they had an antique store outside of Houston until Daddy was about 91 or 92, and they were still running that antique store. So if any of you remember when Jeffrey was in command, it was an awful big house, but I kind of grew into it because every time they visited, something came into the house, and it was great fun. Now, I have my dad living next to me right there at the Claiborne. And for instance, yesterday we had our little trip over to the VA to take care of some business. And there's fun things you can do when your dad is elderly living near you. And they're not familiar with where they're living, like Daddy isn't, because we moved them here from Texas. I'll take different ways to the VA every time. And he'll say, "Where are we going?" "Well, we're going to the VA. You didn't go this way before." "No, I'm just messing with you, We talk about the Fords. We talk about different cars when we're out. We went to Captain D's yesterday. We always have a good time. So it's a good chapter now. And to have this, and you all here, and for Daddy to be honored like this with such a magnificent recognition does my heart good. And I thank you all. I hope you get a chance to talk to my dad. He can be a lot of fun. Thank you. And please, at the end, if you come up, you can see all this nice stuff. It's my honor that you all are here. Thank you.
It's an honor for me to introduce the Honorable Vincent Hammeril. We are, as I mentioned before, he was born and raised in the Normandy region of France. And after he was born and raised, he serves here in the United States in Atlanta. He's been here since September of 2019. He's been a member of the French Diplomatic Service for over 36 years. He is truly a world traveler, serving his nation in the Netherlands, Sri Lanka, Niger, the Philippines, Poland, Mali, and most recently in Canada. He studied law and English language and literature at the University of Haute-Normandie and in Rouen, France, and in the University of Paris. He has received the honor of the Knight of Orange-Nassau from the Netherlands and the Knight of the National Order of Merit from his home nation of France. He is married, has 7 children, and when he's not performing his official duties, he enjoys jogging, reading novels and books on history, playing music on his descant recorder, and painting with his daughters. Sir, we are so honored to have you here. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Vincent Hammeril.
So, dear Radioman Second Class Battista, dear Beth, dear Jeff, dear Chaplain, ladies and gentlemen, as you said, my name is Vincent Hammeril, and I am the Consul General of France for the American Southeast, and I am deeply honored to bestow the insignia of the Legion of Honor upon Mr. Joseph B. Battista, a U.S. World War II veteran. The medal is awarded on behalf of the President of the Republic of France, Emmanuel Macron. To begin, I would like to thank all of Mr. Battista's family and friends who are here to show their support and admiration, and all those who have helped put on this ceremony and are in attendance today. The National Order of the Legion of Honor was created by Emperor Napoleon in 1802 to recognize individuals who have served France or the ideals it upholds. The medal is France's most prestigious order and is bestowed on French citizens as well as foreign nationals, including veterans such as the Americans who risked their lives during World War II fighting on French soil. More than 70 years ago, Mr. Battista risked his life for the freedom of France and Europe. France is what it is today, a free and sovereign country, thanks to the bravery of such veterans and thanks to America. We are now decades away from World War II, and yet we still pay homage to these veterans, to the legacy of their courage and their fight for freedom in a time of darkness and despicable ideologies that came to power in Europe. Today, we remember that the French-American friendship is bound in blood and that our 2 countries owe each other their very existence as free nations. We remember that from the US Revolutionary War to the battlefields of World War I and the beaches of Normandy, the United States and France have always stood shoulder to shoulder to defend the values of freedom and democracy. The United States and France remain allies in addressing international threats and challenges to this day. Mr. Joseph Battista, you embody this shared French-American history. You illustrated with your courage the friendship and shared values that so profoundly bind our 2 nations. We are gathered here to honor you. Mr. Battista, you are a true hero. Your example gives us inspiration for the future, and your legacy provides a moral compass for generations to come. In recognition of your heroic actions and extraordinary accomplishments, the President of the French Republic, Emmanuel Macron, nominated you into the Legion of Honor with the rank of Knight. The French people will never forget what you helped do to restore our freedom. And today we also remember the ultimate sacrifice of so many of your comrades who rest on French soil. They will remain forever in our hearts. Before officially bestowing you with this decoration, France's highest honor, I would like to highlight your heroic deeds in France during World War II. You entered into active service with the United States Navy on May 8, 1943. After military training, you were assigned to the USS Somers, DD 381, and served as a radio man during normal sea duty and manned the 20mm gun during combat operations. This destroyer performed convoy duty escorting troops and supply ships from New York City to Plymouth, before participating in Operation Neptune, the Navy component of the D-Day Normandy landings. During this operation, your destroyer spent most of its time off the coast of Omaha Beach, providing direct artillery support and anti-submarine protection. The USS Somers also supported Operation Dragoon in the southern France, participating in the Battle of Port-Cros and operations near Toulon and Marseille. In recognition of your service, you were awarded the African European Middle Eastern Campaign Medal with 2 stars, the American Area Medal, and the World War II Victory Medal, among other awards. And I will now bestow the decoration. Monsieur Joseph Battista, au nom du président de la République française, Emmanuel Macron, nous vous remettons les insignes de chevalier de l'ordre de la Légion d'honneur.
First, I want to thank Consul General for honoring me with this award. This event is the greatest day of my life. I was only 18 years old when I enlisted in the I was only 18 years old when I enlisted in the U.S. Navy. I really had no idea what the Navy was all about, or the war for that matter. But everyone was joining up after Pearl Harbor, and I felt I had to go. I recall some of the great days of my life. They were the days on board my destroyer in the English Channel during the invasion of Normandy. While at Plymouth, England, days before the invasion, I and other soldiers were offered $300 to trade places with them so that they could go on our destroyer for the invasion. But not one of us would accept the $300 because we had to go too. So we had to be. No one took the offer. I will never forget the sight on D-Day. Those that followed, ships everywhere. You looked, and planes clouded the skies. I would not truly comprehend the significance of this operation until much later in my life, but I certainly do now. I will also never forget the days in the Mediterranean Sea. For 2 months after Normandy landing, when my destroyer led a convoy of ships, we were going to invade the southern France. And we sank 2 German cruisers, bombarded the French coast for 4 days, and supported assaulting troops. we never stopped hunting submarines. All those things considered, we were very lucky. We were never really hit. Our ship was never hit, although we did see a torpedo run probably about 30 or 40 feet away from us, and we were very glad that it didn't hit us. We crossed the Atlantic many times in our convoy escort. I always look forward to the sight of entering the New York harbor. The Statue of Liberty. I knew this was a sight exactly that my grandparents had seen. And when they came to America from Italy many years ago, and I always looked for that statue whenever we came back into the harbor. Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't finish. I was very proud of my service in the U.S. Navy and Air Force, and I'm also proud of all veterans, especially those serving today, like the sailors who joined us from Fort Gordon. I want to thank my daughter, Lieutenant Colonel Battista Foley, and my son-in-law, Brigadier General Jeff Foley, for their service and planning of this ceremony. I was blessed in my life to enjoy 72 years of marriage with my wife, Georgia, and being proud father of 2 daughters, Georgia and Beth. Thank you for coming to share this award with me and my family. Thank you all.
I'd like to just invite you all now just to listen to some special music that we have designed for today. Colonel Retired Ron Piper on the bagpipes. Thank you, sir, for joining us today, sir. Chaplain, we're going to have a benediction now, and then I would like for you all, this is going to be the adventurous part. Is the staff ready? Terry, you guys ready? We have 100 glasses of champagne, or perhaps a beverage of your choice, to be distributed very quickly, and then we will invite Mr. Hammeril to lead into Toast for Joe. But first, our benediction. Chaplain Mateer.
Well, I don't know if you were paying attention during the bagpipes, but this really was an amazing grace of God to allow this all to take place, and we thank God. And please join me for the benediction. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you his peace. Amen. Amen.
Well, you can stand up and just hang out here, but stand up and get loose. But thank you all. This ends the formal part of our ceremony. But don't go anywhere. Here we go. Here we go. Champagne. Champagne.
So great.
I can have y'all look at me one time.
Thank you all. Here we go. Sir.
Merci beaucoup. Donc à la santé de Monsieur Battista, nouveau chevalier de la Légion d'honneur. Félicitations.
Here, here. Here, here. Merci beaucoup. Thank you all very much. Please enjoy some spirits and food and come up here and meet Papa Joe.
We would try to knock one gun out at a time, then we'd move to the next gun.
Yeah, of course, to destroy the guns,
Yeah, we were
so that the soldiers could land.
yeah, we destroyed the guns so the American soldiers couldn't land.
Yeah.
Because the American soldiers couldn't land with all those guns they had. And you know, I have to tell you that there was thousands of soldiers in the water too.
Of course. Wow.
A lot of Americans died that time.
Yeah, the first ones. Yes.
Yeah, but it's something you have to do in war. You never, you know, when you're 19, you don't know enough to be scared. You know what I mean? Now I would be real scared.
Yeah.
And it was hard because the move is very hard.